Do you, and I think we have talked about this, have difficulty expressing your desires, your likes, your dislikes? You may have learned that a statement of what you like or love is an attack on others by the way people react to them. Their reaction may be because you've learned to only communicate boundaries when you're angry or frustrated. Stating boundaries are meant to bring you closer to the people who love you and want to see you authentically. Join us to find out how to speak your boundaries clearly so that there's no mistaking that love you have for your self-expression. Yeah. Tamala Shaw, say it with me, Tamala. Tamala Shaw graduated from Radiant Coaches Academy as a certified life coach. She specializes in the area of codependency because she was diagnosed with codependency over a decade ago. She was in therapy because her life was spiraling out of control, and at the forefront was a failing marriage. And she has now made it her mission to use her teaching and life lessons to give a more holistic look at the recovery of codependency. She co-authored the book, God Turned Mommy's Wine into Water, with her mom, which tells a recovery story of a mom and daughter who wrestled with the addiction in two very different ways. She also hosts a fabulous podcast, of which I believe both Coach Lee and I have been guests, about codependency, named the Codependent Me Podcast. Please welcome to the stage the beautiful and fabulous Tamala Shaw.
Oh, that's so nice. Oh, thank you guys. Thanks for having me. This has been so phenomenal. Like hands down, it has been so good. Can you guys hear me okay? Excellent. All right, perfect. Because I know I had to unplug my headset and plugged it back in. So I just wanted to make sure you guys could hear me. So let me just say, my presentation was 30 minutes ago. You guys hit everything that I'm going to talk about. Honestly, I mean, you guys are so good when it comes to boundaries and all of this. So, hands down, I already know you guys are going to get this and we're going to be good. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am Tamala Shaw. And I got into this whole boundary and codependency and all of that because all my life I've been people pleasing constantly. When my parents were alcoholics, so not both of them, thank goodness, they are all recovering at this point. But I had a whole long line of alcoholics in my family, or drugs. You know, it's all you choose your drug. But my mother and my father's, theirs was alcohol. So my mom, she was a great mom for what she knew how to do. She would send us to school, pick us up. We would stop by the liquor store on the way home, go home. She'd do her homework, she'd cook, and then she'd go into the room. And that's when she would drink. I never, ever saw my mom drunk. Isn't that crazy? Never saw her drunk. The only thing that I saw was in the middle of the night, she would come out of her room and she might hit the wall when she was going to the bathroom, right? I was thinking, gosh, she's so sleepy. My gosh. You know, I didn't realize until later she was actually in the room drunk, going to the bathroom, stumbling. And there was a time where, you know, she was sitting in a chair. I don't know. I'm dating myself now, but they had these. I guess it's like a single couch. Now you might have the ottoman, right? But she was sitting in that, smoking a cigarette, dropped the cigarette while she went into a stupor, and she literally set it on fire, right? So I have a lot of PTSD as a child. And that led to me people pleasing as I, you know, to take care of my siblings. I had to take care of my siblings. As I got older, I felt like I needed to take care of friends. Then I needed to take care of my mate. And I never allowed people to be who they were. I wanted to fix everything. So when I realized I was codependent, one of the things that I had to work on were my boundaries. Boundaries, I had zero. The only thing I knew is that I would be so mad when somebody did something because I would have to deal with the consequences, but I wasn't the person whose action was taken. I would have to deal with other people's situations. I didn't realize I didn't have to. So went to counseling, realized I was codependent, didn't know what codependency was. One of my works was boundaries. So let's get into it. Let me see if I can share this, because Lord, see what's going to happen, y'all. Let me pull this up and then this. Okay, coach, we're going to see. Okay. Can you guys see the presentation? Watch
Yes.
out. Yes. Okay. So boundaries. All righty. Let's see how we do this. Okay, here we go. So boundaries are clear guidelines of how you would like to be treated. We always say we teach people how to treat us, right? So what you do is when you have boundaries, you let other people know what is and what is not acceptable to you. And in that, you can't feel bad. You have to have your expectations down and let it be what it is, because it honors your needs. When you have a lack of boundaries, I want you all to ask yourselves these questions. Are you used to taking responsibility of others? Right? Are you a people pleaser? Do you feel like people don't respect you when you make certain decisions? Do you have a fear of being rejected or abandoned? For me, that last one was huge. I didn't realize that I had abandonment issues because I had my biological father. He never truly claimed me. And with my stepfather, I always felt like I was just a part of my mother's package. So I always tried to do things right because I was a part of the package. I wasn't really accepted in my eyes, not in his eyes, only in mine. It's all about what I was, what I was thinking. So if you said yes to any of these, you might need to work on your boundaries when it comes to these situations. So why set boundaries? Because you matter. Everybody in here, I want you to think, I matter, I matter. Because you matter, you need to set boundaries on how people treat you and the things that you stand for. You need to honor your boundaries. We all have to think about what are the requirements in friendships, any type of kinship. What are my requirements? What do I require people? How do I require them to treat me? So when you think about that, you have to set boundaries on how that's going to work. The other thing I always tell people is give your best yes. There's a book out there called The Best Yes. So if you really think about, like if somebody comes and says, can I use your car? Like, does this person have a license? Does this person, are they accident prone? If your best yes isn't yes, then the answer is no. So if you know that this person, if something happens to the car, they're not going to pay for it. You're going to have to pay for it. I always said to myself, if a person can't pay my deductible, you can't use my car. That was my boundary. So the other thing is having boundaries, it lowers your anxiety and your stress level, because when you've set those boundaries, when you give your answer, you're not worried about them being upset. You don't have the fear of an argument, any of that. So if you have your boundaries set, you have zero. Well, I'm so grateful for it. Zero anxiety and stress on what my answers are going to be. Okay. So how to set boundaries? You define your limits. Define what your boundaries are for yourself. And you do that. Well, I've done that, and I teach people to do it by journaling. By listening to your body where you need boundaries. For me, when it's something that I need to set a boundary for, I feel it in my throat. I get this knot in my throat, which makes me know something is off. Something is very off in my body. So I need to look at that situation and see where I need to set my boundary. The next thing you need to do is communicate your boundary. It's very, very important. As Tamara was saying earlier, we set boundaries in love, not in anger, not because I'm feeling this certain way right now. It's because it's essential in life to make this relationship work, and we need it for everything to be okay. So when you're communicating your boundary, you've already talked to yourself about it and why you're doing it and everything. So you speak calmly and lovingly to this person, and you tell them why you have to have this, why this boundary is set. And also you have to communicate what's going to happen if that boundary is crossed. I always tell people, don't be vague, be clear. I was coaching a woman, and this is just a perfect example. I was so proud of her. So she had her husband was struggling with alcohol. And so she was like, he'd been doing so well for a long time. And then all of a sudden she realized he had a drink. And so she said, okay, I'm going to have to sit down with him and set this boundary. And so what she did was she didn't tell him, okay, now if you keep drinking, I'm going to leave you. What she said was, if you continue to drink, what I'll need to do for myself is detach from you. And until you've become sober for a year, I'll have to be out of the relationship. Like, you'll have to be sober for a year before I come back, because a year is my time limit in knowing that you've done the work and you're doing everything that you need to do in order to make the relationship work. I was vague versus clear. Awesome. So if someone crosses a boundary, I want you guys to realize that some people, you're in your 30s, early 40s before you realize what true boundaries are. So you have been allowing these people to do certain things for a very, very, very long time. So you can't expect for them to just understand your boundary, accept it, and be good with it right away. Some people may, because they may have done their work in boundaries, but you've allowed this person to do certain things. And then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm choosing me. It might take them a moment to understand that. I always say, like, for me, I'm a little bit heavier than I want to be. Okay. A little chunky, but I know I can't lose this weight. I can't lose 30 pounds by March 1st. It's not going to happen. I didn't put it on in 2 weeks. It's not going to come off in 2 weeks. It's a gradual, it's work, right? So truly, truly expect a person that you have allowed to not have boundaries, expect for them to try to make you feel guilty, try to manipulate you, try to tell you that you're selfish. I've had this person, because I put myself first, went and told someone else that I was being selfish, started talking negatively about me. But when people know you and they understand boundaries, they're not going to listen to that foolishness. So don't even worry about it. Don't worry about it. A person may get angry. I call it the bear. If you've been feeding this bear all chocolate and this and that, and then all of a sudden you want to give this bear carrots, the bear's gonna be like, oh no, sweetie, I want what you've been giving me. I don't want your nuts and I don't want that. I want the chocolate. Give it to me now. That bear may growl to try to make you change your mind. That bear may try to stand up and get big on you just to try to make you change your mind, but you stand on your boundaries. But I do want to say I'm very, very cautious, because some people are in abusive relationships. So I want you to go out and get help, because I don't want anyone to put themselves in a dangerous situation. So go find yourself a counselor or an advocate in order to help you be able to set those boundaries. You'll get there, but just do it in a safe way. Okay. All right. So, as we know, the only people that's going to be upset about your boundaries are those who have benefited from you not having any. Okay. That part. So don't worry about those people. Continue to keep yourself number one and set your boundaries and stand on your boundaries. All right. So these are some reasons why people may not set boundaries, because they don't like conflict. When I was married, whenever it was a time where I knew I needed to set a boundary and I'm like, I just don't even feel like arguing. That's when I would get that knot in my throat and it would shut me completely down. That chakra was closed and I just didn't want to deal with it. Or, you know, you're so used to being nice and, nobody wants to, be called a B or anything like that. So you have fear of what others are going to think. Don't worry about that. Some people don't know where to start, which is what we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But there's help out there. You have all kind of groups, other people who know how to set boundaries. There's a lot of people out there that can help you and teach you how to start. And some people just don't feel it's important. I had someone the other day, they were talking about someone that they wanted to, when their boyfriend came home, I want to talk about this and I want to talk about that. And I want to tell him this and I'm going to tell him that. But when the boyfriend got in front of her, all of a sudden, none of it was important and I don't want to deal with it. Well, you still have to make yourself number one. Your thought process in keeping you number one has to always be that, no matter who's in front of you. So that's why it's important to set your boundaries for yourself first, to know why they're important and know why no matter who's in front of you, they're still your boundaries. So when you set boundaries and you actually go through with them, it improves your self-esteem. The first time I had a boundary and I actually went through with it, I felt so good and I was so proud of myself. And I said, I want to feel like this all of the time, right now. So it improves your self-esteem. Boundaries are flexible. I heard Randy say something about that earlier. We change all the time, and you have a right to change your boundaries. Know that. Boundaries establish who you are and what you stand for. So I want you to love yourself enough to set your boundaries. Okay? Your time and energy are precious. Talked about energy earlier. Your time and energy are precious. So choose how you use it. Okay? And let people know, you teach them how to treat you. And you talk to them about what you will and will not accept. Okay. So here are my steps. What I feel as though is a path to boundary setting. So you identify what and why you have those boundaries. Okay. Then you communicate them in a calm and loving way. You address the violation if the boundary is crossed. Expect hostility against those boundaries. Okay. And then utilize a support system. Again, there's so many people out here, so many groups. Do what you need to do in order to hold on to those boundaries. So here's a little paper that, in all actuality, I have this in soft copy. If you want it, you can just email me. My email address will be at the end, but it's how to set healthy boundaries. And it's questions that you can ask yourself and answer them for, honestly, every boundary that you want to set with whomever. It walks you through it. So I want people to understand that I am not responsible for how people respond to my boundaries. I'm responsible for setting and honoring my own boundaries. And if my relationship ends because I set a boundary, there was a crack in the foundation and you don't need it. You don't have to fear retaliation, cut off, anger, any of that when it comes to your boundaries. If you have to detach from someone because they don't understand your boundary, then so be it. I've had to detach from a lot of different people. Unfortunately, when you stand up for yourself, sometimes you lose people. When you figure out who you are, sometimes you lose people because, again, it's that mirror that we were talking about earlier. You want to have people that understand boundaries around you because it's essential in your life, period. So if people they don't want you because of it, hasta la vista, baby. Gotta go. So, affirmation, today's affirmation: I honor my space by setting boundaries. You are doing yourself a disservice if you don't set your boundaries and stand on them. Stand on your boundaries. And that is it, good people. I want to thank you. Yes. So here's my information. If you guys have questions, there's my website. I have a Facebook group. It's called Codependent Me. Please join it. We are a non-judgmental group, and we talk about all things. When people are going through things, they, put certain things in the chat, and what they'll do, other people will respond. Sometimes you'll get a response from me. You can message me on Facebook. I'm always there for people, whether it's boundaries, detachment, codependency, whatever. I'm here for you because I've lived it and I get it. And boundaries are what lead to healthy relationships. Thank you, guys. I'm going to stop sharing now.